Cool. I think let's get started. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. This is the L2 Interop Working Group. We have a really solid agenda today, I believe, and excited to, just jump into things. I guess there I can just hand it off actually. So let's jump into agenda item number one, which is a few quick updates on ERC 7786 cross-chain messaging.
Yep. Thanks, Josh. So just a few updates here on the last over the last few weeks, we have had a series of technical calls involving people from DeFi Wonderland, Espresso, Glacis, and the purpose was to agree on any potential changes to this ERC and on the exact messaging interface to propose. You can find some notes from this call in this link. We had quite a bit of back and forth about the exact extensibility mechanism to include. But as of last week, we've settled on a design for the core of this ERC that we've agreed to freeze. It is now in an open PR. One of the changes that's included in this PR is now the adoption of interoperable binary addresses. This new standard that is also coming out of this Interop working group, and that is the only thing that's blocking this from being merged, since that's also for now an open PR on the ERC's repo. A couple of things that we will be working on in the future are an interface for paying for gas for messages that are sent cross-chain, and potentially some other things built on the extensibility mechanism. But gas payments is one of the main ones. And yeah, that's all that I had to share.
Thank you, Franjo. Cool. Up next, we have some updates from a recent Interop event in Athens, Interopolis, and I think a few other notes as well on an upcoming Interop event. Maybe starting off with
Yeah, I can start off. So last week was Interopolis. It was a very good event. I'll share some of my takeaways, and then Jim also will share some of his as well. So we chatted about 7786 quite a bit, and just like the incentives around that. I think that we kind of all recognize that 7786 is going to be difficult to make successful, but we think it's important to still work towards it anyway. We also discussed about what apps actually want out of their Interop infra. And so the things that the core components we came down to were that apps and their users want speed. They need execution guarantees, so no failed transactions. And then the apps need access to users from other chains and liquidity from other chains. And these are the four most important things for cross-chain apps. And so any sort of interop infra needs to provide that. Yeah, unfortunately, security was not on that list. The other big takeaway, I think, was that a lot of interop and chain abstraction stuff really should be happening in the wallets. So the wallets is where the user is first interacting with a chain, and really the wallets are the ones that have the power to create a very seamless cross-chain experience. So I think that was the other takeaway. And then I think my final takeaway also was that we had a really good AMA with the EF. And I can post the picture of the whiteboard we have. But yeah, I think a lot of the EF goals were very aligned with a lot of the goals that the rest of us there wanted to see. For example, signaling about which ERCs or EIPs, maybe certain people in the EF support, not like a formal support, but just kind of signaling that they like read it and they think it's a good idea. We also talked about the EF doing more wallet research, as well as faster finality and shorter slot times. So yeah, that was that. And then also, before I stop, I will plug that we have in about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, we're having Interop days at Zoo Berlin. So this is the kind of the same week or the same chunk of time as Protocol Berg and all of those other ones. So we'll have 2 days of Interop. Right now, the plan is that the first day is going to be focused on kind of short-term practical interop, like what are the problems we have at this very moment and what do we need to solve. And then I'll be leading that day. And then the second day will be kind of more long-term focused on like the vision of L1 interop, native rollup interop, et cetera. And Luca from L2B will kind of be in charge of that. So if anybody's interested in coming to that, we would absolutely love to have you.
Cool. And I can add on to that. First, just want to say I also be at Zuberlin, so excited to see Ellie and crew there too. Secondly, yeah, Interopolis was great. Thanks to Helena and Dylan from the Sprinter team for planning that. That was like a really, really cool event. Just 48 hours of just straight, nerding out over Interop stuff, and that was like a really special experience that I personally haven't been to a conference like that ever really in my crypto career. So that was cool. In terms of takeaways, I also want to echo that there was just like a lot of interest for the EF to have kind of more dialogue around with builders around what standards they want to coalesce around in order to improve the cross-chain experience between rollups and also with rollup to mainnet. So that was like definitely such a big takeaway for me that I want to just repeat what Ellie just said. And then new stuff. So we also ran a few sessions on 2 topics. One was on solver economics. So around how do you, incentivize more solvers to participate in the system? What can you build in order to do so? If it's public goods or open standards, in order to involve more participation on the solver side. It also kind of got philosophical in terms of, do we want to have more solvers? Do we want to build incentives to have more solvers, or is it okay to have solver centralization and have Wintermute basically facilitate all this flow? So, solver stuff always gets philosophical really quickly. And then lastly, we kind of coalesced around auction mechanism design as one lever that we can pull in order to incentivize more participation, more than just like a vanilla first come first serve or even like a Dutch auction. You can have scoring, you can have exclusivity windows, and so it gets pretty interesting of a design space. And then the second thing we talked about was resource locks, and just talking about various implementations of it, with the compact and in some other implementations. And it was basically just kind of like a 101 or a 202 session, so to speak, just showing people what resource locks were, how they're different from the standard flow that intent protocols have right now, and what the benefits were, and the different types, where we have on-chain versions like the compact, and we have off-chain versions that maybe rely on some sort of MPC scheme and would need maybe some additional reassurances on top of 7702 in order to enable that. So that was a pretty cool discussion.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim and Ellie. Yeah, just +1. That was yeah, really, really great event. Really appreciate the Interopolis team, Solver team for Sprinter team for putting that together. It was great. And yeah, excited to see more people hopefully in Berlin. Cool. If there's nothing else on Interopolis, we can move on to the next agenda item, which is a few quick updates on the open intents framework. 1 second while I actually have a few slides I will share here quickly. Just give me 1 second. Oops, sorry. Here, just need 1 minute. Having some technical difficulties. Apologies. 1 second, sorry. Cool, all set. So this should work. Okay, Hopefully you can see my screen. Just yell if you cannot. Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, starting off with this quick update on the open intents framework. As many people here, I think, already know, this is an effort that was initially seeded by Hyperlane, EF, and a few others late last year, early this year. The goal from the start was to have a maximally open and neutral framework to accelerate getting intents-based systems on all chains, both existing chains, of course, and new long-tail chains. Uh, Open and neutral are key characteristics here, but I think just as important, or in some ways even more important here, is that this needs to be a solution that delivers a high quality experience to users, both developers and I guess end users, of course. So as we started iterating on this and discussing what's the best possible version of this open intents framework, I think it quickly became obvious to many of us that the best path forward here was to expand the group of core contributors to help drive this forward. Again, both to deliver a neutral product, but also to deliver a high quality product that we can actually get into the hands of as many users as possible, as quickly as possible. So with this, again, just this is some of this is sort of already been shared on previous calls, but just as a quick recap, this we are calling the Open Intents Framework 2.0, not to overdo it on the marketing, but just to sort of to separate out what this new initiative is. Super happy that we now have Li-Fi across, Open Zeppelin, and Hyperlane all coming together to drive this forward with folks from the EF. And yeah, so just quickly recapping the goals of the OIF 2.0 as a bit of a refresher again. So this remains unchanged from the 1.0. Needs to be dead simple to get intents-based bridging to all chains. Intents aren't a silver bullet, of course. They don't magically get us to this fully chain abstracted future, but they do help to solve real user pain points today in a really meaningful way, which is why myself and many others are excited for them. So who are the customers of this? Both existing chains and new chains. A bit of a secondary customer here are the solvers. There are, of course, different classes of solvers in terms of more institutional, highly sophisticated solvers, and those on the other side of the spectrum. So it's TBD if we can solve problems for the more institutional solvers, or sort of like what we are best positioned to solve for these players. But I do think there is a path where we can develop some components and tools that provide value to a large number of solvers in a real way. And yeah, again, this is something that many folks who are part of the OIF 2.0 have been thinking about for a long time. Open Zeppelin, Li-Fi, across Hyperlane, really everyone. And just as a quick note, again, like for anyone who wants to provide feedback, input, get more involved, please message me, message any of us involved. Again, this is still somewhat early days, though we hope to move quickly here. So yeah, let me go to the next slide. So yeah, how are we actually doing work with this big collection of diverse teams joining together on the OIF? The default for these kinds of group projects probably is that it moves slowly, eventually grinds to a halt, delivers a lower quality product than a single team would deliver. But I wanted to share just a few thoughts why I'm bullish that I believe this won't be the case here for us with the OIF. And then hopefully I'm not eating these words in a few months, but something that we'll have to continue to be mindful of. The way that we're splitting up the work, it just makes a lot of sense to me, which is basically dividing it up into the work streams that you see here. Anyone that's on the call and is leading any of these work streams, feel free to jump in here in a second, but if you have anything to add. So all of these work streams will be worked on in parallel. Of course, won't all be delivered in the same time. And yeah, I don't want to have any of us commit to timelines at this point, since it may be a little difficult or just too early to say. But just maybe I can just maybe share a bit here for this work stream one, the smart contracts work stream. This is likely to be delivered first, partially because we are very fortunate and grateful that this is something that the LeFi team has been working on for quite a while. That they're not starting from scratch here. All of Ethereum will fortunately get to leverage and benefit from this. And just really quickly, some of the milestones here in this work stream one includes integrating with Compact, which is something that the Uniswap team has been working on for a while here. Shipping intent expression smart contracts, shipping on-chain auction smart contracts, and shipping cross-chain verification module. So just to give sort of a brief taste for what is in this work stream here. Yeah, that is most of what I had here for just wanted to share those sort of updates and refresh on the OIF. Anyone who's been involved in the OIF, if you have anything you want to add, feel free to jump in right now. Otherwise, I can yeah, keep going.
Yeah,
Maybe just
I'll,
give you
I'll...
a sh
Oh, go for it.
no, Jim, I was just gonna give Josh a shout out for pushing this forward. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. Josh, you didn't add your own name into the work streams. So
Yeah.
calling you out on that one. So yeah, just maybe like the super brief update on the OIF. So I think Alexander shared the link for the repo for the OIF. So we had our initial few commits there for the smart contracts work stream. It's like what Josh said, it's basically just like a bunch of interfaces that can connect to a few modules that have different ways in which you can express an intent, whether it's through a resource lock or a non-resource lock, whether you can configure different oracles, whether you have different auction mechanisms. So please do take a look at that and add any comments, or you can reach out to us and we can talk about it, because yeah, I mean, we hope it's the foundation of intents for the Ethereum ecosystem. So want to make sure everyone feels bought into looking at it and adding comments into how it can be more modular, or could be even more extensible, or even more permissionless. And so yeah, that's it.
Cool. Thanks, Jim. And yeah, it was a good point. I did leave out the coordinator work stream, which myself and the EF is leading. Less, in some ways, less critical, but also important role here. So yeah, excited to be serving in this coordinator work stream as part of the OIF. Cool. Well, yeah, thanks all for listening to that update. And then next up, we have some updates on this Interop wallet work that we've previously touched on prior calls, but maybe didn't dive much into. Still a bit early in this work, but I just wanted to make sure that we're keeping this group updated, sharing a bit more like what this thing actually is, where did this come from, what is our goals. Is this the EF making a wallet? No, it's not. But what is this, and why is this something that yeah, that I'm excited for, and I think will help to drive UX, cross-chain UX forward in some hopefully very meaningful ways. Yeah, and so for now, we're calling it Interop Wallet. We do need to find a better name for this soon. If anyone has suggestions, maybe we can do some crowdsourcing at some point. But yeah, anyways, at a very high level, the idea with this project is to create a testnet-only proof of concept wallet to help accelerate UX improvements, specifically in the realm of cross-chain UX, but also eventually touching on other things such as privacy. Again, like to be clear, just to emphasize this is not the EF shipping a wallet, but I wanted to, yeah, just spend a bit more time on why this testnet proof of concept can still be a very high value initiative. So yeah, so what is this Interop proof of concept wallet? Well, we have all of these emerging standards around cross-chain UX. We also have a bunch of other low-hanging fruit that's been out there. And so like how can we as an ecosystem, we as the EF, and we as other teams involved in this, and I neglected to mention this at the beginning of this slide, but Wonderland is really the key contributor here, helping to drive this forward. Not just the EF, not just myself, but just quick shout out to the Wonderland team who has been helping to do all of the heavy lifting behind the scenes to help get this off the ground. And also, as a note, we hope to expand the group of contributors here beyond the EF and the Wonderland in the very near EF and Wonderland in the very near future. And also, I should also say here that I wanted to give a shout out to the Ambire team. So, what's the fastest path? Well, we want to take a very pragmatic approach here on this wallet. The fastest path is start with an existing high quality wallet. In this case, we landed on Ambire. Can share more around why we really fell in love with Ambire as a great solution in this case. But just as a quick note there, that's what we're doing. We're starting with Ambire. We've started with Ambire as the base, and the idea is let's pave the path. Let's demonstrate in sort of a more practical, real world scenario, like what these cross-chain standards can look like in getting into people's hands, even if it is just as a proof of concept. So as a quick summary, let's validate standards in a real world context. Let's provide a blueprint and perhaps even sort of a reference implementation that other wallets can adopt. We do hope and strongly desire to work with wallet teams as we are iterating on this. Many teams, MetaMask, Phantom, Zerion, I'm forgetting some of the others that we've already been in contact with. But there's been many wallet teams that I've already reached out and had conversations with. It's been great. Really appreciate all of the wallet teams who have their own existing roadmaps and priorities, of course, but they've been really great in terms of working with us on this, helping us learn, helping us better understand how we can collaborate on these kinds of things. And I want to acknowledge, of course, that this is something where we have a lot to learn ourselves. There's been a lot of great work that's especially in the past few months with 7702 and other things in terms of wallets starting to innovate more and more on UX. So how can we just act as an accelerant to that? We're not going to, of course, replace that work, but just how can the EF and others with this wallet initiative, how can we accelerate this and then 10x the cross-chain experience in the next few months, hopefully. And point 3 here, I guess just to maybe hit on that really quickly, is this will create hopefully a nice feedback loop where it informs. We were able to take lessons from this as we're iterating on it and help to inform and improve the standardization work as well. So really quickly, just 1 or 2 more minutes on this Interop wallet work, sharing a bit of a roadmap here. Phase 1, which is underway, is focused on accelerating seamless cross-chain transactions. What does this mean? It means leveraging standards such as 7828 chain-specific addresses, which again, the Wonderland team has, and others from ENS team, from ZK Sync team, many others have been helping to push forward since late last year. It's been a bit of a slog, but we're really excited to sort of be approaching the finish line here with 7828. And the next agenda item, actually, Wonderland team will share some updates there. This will be using an adapter layer, so we can easily switch out what's powering the cross-chain transfers under the hood, starting with intents, but later exploring other solutions. Sort of just a guiding principle here is, as much as possible, like maximizing pragmatism and not reinventing the wheel. If there are existing UX patterns, if there are existing trust minimized building blocks that we can leverage, we will. And then, part of this, sort of like the main focus of this phase 1 is creating these, not just sort of the back end and plugging into intents, but how do we create these UI components in a seamless way for displaying and validating these chain-specific, aka interoperable addresses, so that you can enter something like alice.eth at base, alice.eth at arbitrum, alice.eth at pick your favorite chain, and have the wallet handle the rest. You simply select the asset, hit send, and everything else is handled for you automatically under the hood. So this is leveraging both the Interop wallet and chain-specific address work. That's the gist of phase one. Phase two, the goal right now is to shift the focus a bit more into privacy realm, make privacy native to the wallet experience, meaning one click, frictionless, don't need to jump through a bunch of hoops. Having something that is a protocol agnostic implementation, starting with Oxbow and privacy pools. Amin and many others have been pushing this forward. Really excited to leverage this work that has been years in the making, and we'll also design this to support other privacy systems in the future. So what will this look like? Shielded balances, private transfers, and also cross-chain private sends. And I have just an example of what this flow could look like here. This may be obvious to folks that are somewhat familiar with how privacy pools work. There are some limitations, but I'm optimistic that we can get this to still deliver a really high quality user experience as we continue to extend and improve the privacy pool work as well. Yeah, I won't read, I guess, all of this, but you can kind of get a sense for needing to deposit into the privacy pool before you can then withdraw from the pool to whoever you want to send to. And hopefully routing using something like a 4337 mempool rather than a relayer, which might not be as privacy preserving. And then just wrapping up sort of the phase three, this hopefully won't be the end of the wallet work. Hopefully this is something that we continue for months to go, extending into 2026. We'll see. Just sort of taking this these three phases for now. But what is the next phase of this additional interop work? Continuing to iterate, work towards end game interop, making cross-chain swaps even more seamless and handling even more complex transactions, exploring what does it mean to really enter this fully chain abstracted future. Things that actually the Uniswap team, I want to give a quick shout out as well, that have really shown some really amazing demonstrations recently around like what does like a unified balance look like? What does batch spending look like? I think these are things that we also want to play around with. Yeah, not just Uniswap, Reown, MetaMask, many others have been working on this for a while. So we get to stand on those shoulders and hopefully, yeah, continue to iterate. Also leveraging standards like 5792 and 7811. So yeah, that was it. Hopefully that sheds a bit more light on what this Interop wallet name TBD project is. If anyone has questions, yeah, happy to talk through things. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you want to get more involved. Still somewhat early days, but yeah, really excited to see what we can do here with this Interop wallet project. And yeah, if anyone from the Wonderland team who's here wants to add anything, feel free to jump in now.
I think it's a very good overview. Thank you, Josh.
Cool. Thanks, TT. And yeah, excited to have TT who actually is yeah, just recently joined the Wonderland team and has been doing an amazing job to jump in and to drive this this wallet project forward. So yeah, thank you to TT here. Cool. Okay, well, I guess that's a nice segue then. I will stop sharing and I can hand it off to you, TT, for the next agenda item. Let me make sure I do this correctly. No more technical difficulties. Cool. So yeah, next up we have an update on chain-specific addresses, aka interoperable addresses.
Perfect. I do not have access to share, but to share screen, but I just shared the link of the presentation if you want to follow me.
Cool.
So I'm going to go.
Share, you can share now if you want, but yeah, either way.
Okay. Perfect. Give me one second. There. Hope you can see my screen.
Perfect.
Okay, amazing. So I'm going to do a quick overview about the interoperable addresses standards that we are working on. It's the 7828 and the 7930. The format is this syntax you can see over here of the address, @chain, hashtag the checksum. And we have split the efforts into two standards because they're aimed for a different target audience. The 7930 defines the binary format of this interoperable address, and it's almost ready to be merged to draft. We have addresses the comment that the editor left us was regarding like a link reference. So now it should be ready to be approved this week. And I know that 7786 is referencing this one. So it's important for that standard as well. So just FYI, by this week, you should have this ready. And then 7828 represents the human readable names of these interoperable addresses, and we are using ENS. And regarding that, Teddy already, like in other working group goals, share more details about this, and you can go to the standards if needed. For more specification, I will just go on a high-level overview right now because there is a change that I want to present. Is regarding the chain list migration, and I will go over that in a few minutes. This will be quick though. So one small thing I want to mention about the Interop addresses is for us to be on the same page on how this helps improve the UX, and mainly provides this unambiguous way to refer to an address on a specific chain, of course. But this helps to mitigate the errors when interacting cross-chain, and also to specify the target address, both for like user addresses, but also for assets. So it's really improving the UX and mitigating errors, which is really important, and also allows to create more smart flows and automations where the wallet can know where the payment is expected to be received based on the information the address is providing. So some of the addresses would look something like that. The one we expect to be mostly seen is this one, where you are using ENS. And for the chain portion, what we are suggesting and we are expecting to have fully defined in the next 2 weeks. So regarding the standard, the timeline we are defining is 2 weeks. Regarding the implementation, might take a little longer, but I will go over that in a second. So what are the next steps of 7828 to get it finalized? The first thing that we are doing is that we need to fork the Ethereum chain list. This is because we're going to polish some short names to be more user-friendly. And then this needs to go through consensus with all the rollups for it to be registered on-chain. Because the end goal is, instead of fetching the information from the GitHub list, we're going to get this information on-chain. And to do so, the first step is that we are already working on it, and we're going to do a proposal to the ENSL to get L2.eth. So with that, we are going to create a custom resolver for the short name of the chain and the chain ID. And this will be resolved on the human readable name of the interoperable addresses. And what we are aiming for is, so if you take this one, there is no top-level domain. Under the hood, what's going to be is arbitrum.l2.eth. So that mainly like the specification of this custom resolver is what's being worked on, and will be all specified on 7828. After that, we will move forward into the development of this custom resolver to be deployed and then used. But in the meantime, what we're doing, aside from the wallet development that is, it's getting parallelized, is an SDK development for all wallets to consume these methods for a better UX in interoperable as a whole. So what we are doing now is this SDK method will consume the information from the centralized list on GitHub. But for wallets to consume, so I expect 2 weeks from now for wallets to be able to consume this and to be fully specified, as I mentioned. Right now, it's going to be get consumed through the GitHub list, but then it will be migrated to the on-chain list. And for the wallets, they will just need to upgrade the version of the SDK. Everything else will be handled under the hood. So shouldn't be like shouldn't generate much friction, but that's the plan for 7828. I would love to hear like your thoughts on it, and of course we can continue this discussion on each of the standards in GitHub. And one more thing is like we're thinking of as a long-term solution for the decentralization of the chain list involves 7785. But we are still like looking into it, and we expect to get more involved after these 2 weeks and finishing 7828. Because 7785 sort of breaks a little bit with the format of the 1080 type. So we're thinking this as a long-term solution for later, and proposing this as the midterm solution in improving the interoperable experience. And that's all I have.
We have one question from comment.
Hey, will this short-term solution, will it not become permanent? They have a tendency of becoming permanent, unfortunately.
Sorry, you mean like you think this will become the permanent solution instead of the?
Yes. So these short-term tendencies, sometimes they become long-term, right? So are we sure that it's just a short-term solution and it will not be forever, basically?
Yeah, I can jump
That would
in.
be, yeah.
I can jump in real quick. The main purpose of, as I said on the chat, but the main purpose of the new list, like right now we do have a list, but the names are kind of ugly to showcase for users. Like some chains have very, very weird names that are really confusing sometimes. So the list is mainly to be used as the first iteration for the seeded values when we migrate to the L2.eth resolver. So we definitely need a list or some consensus on chain names, etc., to basically bootstrap the on-chain resolver, which will have a governance. After that's done, it will just a matter of changing the SDKs to point to the resolver rather than pointing to the list. And we can deprecate the list, and any new chains that want to register will be pointed to register through the appropriate process on-chain.
Christian.
Yeah, I have one concern about, I know one of the goals here is to make the naming, prettier and human readable. But what will happen if a name of a rollup changes, right? Like at one point, OP mainnet was called Optimism, I think. Some rollups could get renamed over time, or the official name changes. So like, obviously in the traditional like TLD space, I mean, people do redirects, right? At one point, Gmail had to be renamed Google Mail in the UK, and it was like, well, if you have a Gmail address, they'll just redirect it for you, but your email address going forward became at Google Mail, right? So in this new model with like an on-chain registry, I mean, what happens in the future if one of these rollups wants to change their name and wants to change the sort of like address that everybody uses to represent themselves?
That's a great question. I mean, as long as they don't collide with each other, they can create a new entry, and both options should live on chain. We definitely don't want to support, let's say, changing the name forcefully. For example, as you said, like replacing Optimism with OP mainnet or the other way around, because that would break a shit ton of things. So ideally, as long as they don't step on each other's toes, they can register additional names. We don't really see this happening a lot, but in those edge cases that might happen, there is nothing blocking them to just register a new entry.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, no problem.
Cool. Thank you for the questions. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you, TT and Skelly. This was a great update on 7828. So then I think we can move on to the final agenda item, which is We have VC from the Socket team sharing a bit on their recent work on filler vaults and liquidity for intent markets. Is VC here? Yes, awesome. Hello.
Hey folks, hope you can hear me well. Let me try and share my screen. I don't use Zoom often, so let me know if this is the right. Hope you can see my screen.
Yep, perfect.
Perfect, guys. Yeah, this last week or maybe this week, I don't seem to remember, we posted something about filler vaults. And the idea is to sort of like deepen the liquidity available in intent markets by using like hyperliquid like vault systems. And I'll just like walk you guys through it. These are like two high-level screenshots. So this is the one where you try and send 500 or like 600K of a blue chip asset like DAI between two blue chip chains like Arbitrum and Optimism, and biggest like intent markets aren't able to do it unfortunately today. This is another screenshot of how concentrated these markets are, right? So really, these intent markets today are used for like really small size transactions, and as things scale, as these markets scale, the liquidity dynamics sort of even get like more fragmented. So for us, we were like, how do we make this situation better? But before we do that, I think the core insight here is today becoming a filler requires you to have skill and capital. And the number of people that lie in this intersection are very small. People that have capital don't necessarily have the technical sophistication to run a filler on any of these intent protocols. And people that have the skills don't necessarily have the largest, like, access to capital for them to be productive on these markets. So ideally, we want to be in a world where we can decouple this, where anyone should be able to come up with skills, sort of like searchers, where you can be like really smart at indexing the chain, reading what's happening on chain, and come up with like this technical sophistication, these skills. And anyone else should be able to fund this, like fund capital to this strategy, so we can use those skills and capital together and solve for these like intent markets. And this is not something completely new. Like demand for this somewhat already exists. So HLP vaults that I mentioned before on Hyperliquid were used as a mechanism to bootstrap the perp order book, right? And at some point, via the screenshot, 50 to 75% of the open interest on the platform was via these vaults. And what happened was the order book is bootstrapped this way, and then the sophisticated parties like enter and sort of like really make this market more competitive and liquid. But you need these sort of like systems to sort of initialize this markets and sort of like add that initial sort of like threshold. Otherwise, these intent protocols are stuck in this like chicken and egg problem where users don't come because there's no liquidity, market makers or fillers don't come because there are no users. We also have a screenshot on the right talking about how Arbitrum Foundation is willing to sort of like loan funds to solvers, right? There is no mechanism via they can do this today. It's very manual, but it is a clear insight that chains and foundations will want to help with the capital, and users would likely want to access the filler yield as well, which is likely very high, at least for the smaller amounts. Again, there are no like numbers on this, so very hard to say how much that is, but it is a source of yield that users can participate in. How this is built. So Socket sort of enables anyone to build these like verifiable strategies off-chain. These strategies have on-chain vaults attached to them across different networks. So as a user, you can just like put up funds on these vaults. These strategies would include like logic like, hey, when should I fulfill an intent? Should I wait for 1 block? Should I wait for 10 blocks? What sort of settlement oracle should I use? Should I use the UMA optimistic oracle? Should I use Chainlink or something else? What sort of rebalancing logic should I run? Anyone can sort of like look at these strategies and then sort of like deploy capital to these strategies. These strategies can then go and prove to the vault that, hey, I ran the strategy as intended, and I can withdraw capital from the vault. I can also quickly walk you guys through this example of like how this filler strategy works on across. So this is like an across spoke pool on the source network, which is Arbitrum. As a user, you sort of like deposit your intent to this contract. The filler strategy gets sort of like triggered as soon as this happens. It waits for, let's say, 1 block, and then it sort of relays a proof along with the ZKP to socket's switchboard contract, which sort of validates that the strategy ran as intended. And post that, we can sort of send an instruction to the vault that, hey, let's use the fund in the vault to fulfill the intent. The interesting part is, and this comes with the socket like stack, is that these the verification could mean anything. It could mean a ZKP, it could mean a quorum-based attestation, it could even be run by some like single party that we all trust that just like signs off on it. It could be run in a TE, and users would be able to like put up funds knowing the trust assumptions that come with it. So filler vaults overall help with bootstrapping for new intent protocols. It helps these intent protocols expand across different networks because chains and foundations can just deploy capital easily now. It helps intent protocols get deeper liquidity in their markets, and it helps users tap into filler yield. This is not all theory. There are like 2 QR codes here. One is a QR code for the full proposal, and there's a demo video on YouTube where you will see there are 2 sort of like filler vaults with differently configured strategy. One waits for, say, 1 block, one waits for, let's say, 6 blocks. And both of these sort of like compete on chain to fulfill a user order, right? So yeah, go check it out. And this is an open call. So if you want to come and build this, Socket can provide the infrastructure for you to build this. And once you've like built out this sort of system, Bungee can provide your vault order flow, so you can on yield on the intents you fulfill. That's pretty much it. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, VC. Any questions for VC? Cool. I guess not. It was explained perfectly. But yeah, I think maybe people can reach out to you on Telegram if they want to follow up, or yeah, maybe drop a message in the chat wherever you prefer. Perfect. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's all we have for this week's call. If nothing else, we'll see you all back here in 2 weeks. Thanks for joining.